the other side, I spoke with Bill Gates, who today talks about India's achievements in the development goals, which have taken a backseat during the COVID years. But how soon are we going to achieve them? All that and more in this interview with Bill Gates on the other side. Many thanks, Mr. Bill Gates, for joining me here on Times Now. These are interesting times, to say the least. The world is getting back on its feet after a very harrowing 2 years in the pandemic. We're in the middle of a war between Russia and Ukraine. In your goalkeepers report, you do talk about the fact that there were 17 goals that the world, 193 countries, needed to fulfill. And I quote, you say, 7 years in and the world is on track to achieve almost none of these goals. But failure is not inevitable if we collectively challenge our assumptions on how global progress is achieved. I want to ask you, Mr. Bill Gates, how do you think we are going to get on track with the achievement of these goals, and what makes you so hopeful?
Well, certainly the progress in the world up to the start of the pandemic on these goals was very good. You know, childhood deaths were cut, agricultural productivity was increased, you know, women's empowerment, things like digital bank accounts, particularly in India, were improving a lot. So we had a foundation of success. But as you say, the pandemic was a gigantic setback, and now the war in Ukraine is having very negative effects worldwide. So it'd be easy to lose focus on these goals and not push to get back on track. You know, I'm optimistic that despite these headwinds, we'll be able to use innovation as long as these things remain a priority. You know, investing in health systems, investing in better seeds, looking at women's empowerment. You know, these goals count. You know, every life saved makes a huge difference. And so, you know, we're highlighting the need to maintain the priorities.
Mr. Bill Gates, on our 75th Independence Day of India, you tweeted and you said, as India celebrates its 75th Independence Day, I congratulate Narendra Modi for prioritizing healthcare and digital transformation. Do you think India has handled the pandemic better than other developing countries? And our vaccination progress, how do you think about that program and the success that it has met with?
Yeah, there's a number of things that were done well in India. The ramping up vaccine manufacturers, you know, Serum, Bharat Biotech, not only were able to provide over 2 billion vaccines to India, but also making a lot of those available to the world. The vaccine coverage that India's achieved with the adults at something like 90%, that's definitely a best practice. You know, I wouldn't say any government was totally ready, and we learned a lot as time went on. But, you know, by using digital payment systems to get, you know, government payments out efficiently during the pandemic, by having strong messaging on access to vaccines, you know, even building up oxygen so the people who were sick, that the death rate was reduced by that. So, you know, a number of things India did well, and, you know, our foundation had a chance to partner on those things, and you know, I think we both learned a lot.
Do you think the progress that India is making in green fuel, green hydrogen and ethanol blended fuels is something that can help India, and as an idea, it's something that the world and India should collaborate together?
Well, it's great to see, you know, increased use of solar energy in India. It's great to see, you know, companies like Reliance making large investments there. but we are still very much at the start of what needs to be done. The agriculture piece in terms of new seeds using the very best science, that needs to be accelerated. Looking at, how the industrial economy gets changed, that needs to be accelerated. And so global cooperation on these innovations to get them scaled out, that is of incredible importance.
Mr. Gates, during the pandemic, especially because you speak of food security in your report, there was the issue of migrant labor, and there was the move by the government to bring food and welfare schemes to poor people, to migrant labor. As far as reforms agenda is concerned, do you think this food security which comes through government schemes is something that are sustainable? Will they interfere with the development goals going forward? Do you think free power, free electricity, free water, these are schemes that can help countries to move forward, or is this profligacy that countries should avoid?
Well, certainly the government's very involved in the food system, funding the innovation, making sure that the very best seeds get out to the farmers get educated. You do have to be careful of, something like free water can mean that you drain the water table. So when you have finite resources, making sure they're used well, that you have, fertilizer, but you're using the correct fertilizer, and that, the new seeds, you're helping educate people on those. So the government role's incredibly important, and it's finite resources. So I think innovation is the thing that's going to allow us, even in the face of climate change, to keep food security strong.
Mr. Bill Gates, how do you see India in terms of its position in the world in pushing through these achievement of these development goals, the commitment levels, and the future, the way you see it in terms of delivery from India?
India is super important. It's a huge part of the world's population, and it's an exemplar. Many of the things that have been done with women's self-help groups and digital empowerment in India are leadership actions that are being learned about in the rest of the world. Likewise, the ability to make high-volume, low-cost vaccines, that's very much a best practice. And so, part of the foundation's work is not only helping in India itself, but then helping take those innovations to other parts of the world where they can be beneficial. India's got challenges, but it's great to see that health and agriculture are, increased priorities, and there's many Indian innovators. So if we get their work all the way out to the individuals, that we can get back on track on these sustainable development goals.
Mr. Bill Gates, I want to ask you, when you speak with the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, how do you assess his commitment to these sustainable development goals, and how would you rate him amongst world leaders?
Well, he has a huge challenge. India's gigantic country with diverse circumstances. There's a lot of health initiatives that he's been part of, including improving vaccination rates, improving sanitation. We appreciate the partnership to work on women's empowerment, nutrition, supporting those goals and making sure that the innovations are driven quickly. We have a lot of good success story. He's embraced the digital system, including Aadhaar, and there's a lot more to be done. But India has a lot to feel good about.
Mr. Gates, digital financial access has been a significant game changer. How do you see the learnings from this experience enabling other SDG parameters?
Yeah, the one goal that we're actually ahead on is digital finance, including women having access to those bank accounts. And during the pandemic, that was used very effectively. When going to a bank branch, would have been very difficult. So that is a best practice, and we're working with various groups in India to spread that around the world. The ID system underlies it all, and it's an incredible infrastructure that new applications are being added to on a regular basis. And I work with people like Nanda and Neelankani about driving it even faster.
Mr. Gates, would you say India has actually demonstrated several lessons of handling the pandemic, both on the digitization and on the health front, for other countries to follow? Would you believe that?
Yeah, India did a number of things well, and getting those oxygen centers out, getting even some new capacity into the health system. Health is such a central thing, and it's been great to see the recommitment to invest in primary health care centers and vaccination coverage, and the vaccine companies in India will help us. We need additional vaccines for things like tuberculosis. So yes, a lot was done well. Every country should learn from each other, because this is not the last time that we'll face a pandemic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bill Gates, for joining me on Frankly Speaking.